coming in.
What's the hole?
Officer?
It's just you here.
And you?
Where's your brother?
Eriksholm: The Stolen Dream is a 2025 adventure stealth game developed by River End Games. Think A Plague Tale: Innocence, cause that's what I thought. Man, those games were good. If you haven't played them and you want to finally like yourself, you know what to do. Let me set the scene. We follow Hanna, who's being followed by the police, who are all following her brother, Herman, who's following a box, but not really because boxes can't move.
What the hell are you talking about?
The plot is simple, which complements the game's broader design philosophy. Eriksholm provides enough narrative intrigue to keep players engaged without becoming convoluted or distracting. It feels like a dope Netflix series that would customarily be canceled after 2 seasons. That might sound like a dig, but it isn't.
Right.
Graphics. I should preface this section by noting that my settings were more maxed than Asmongold's RAM.
Why are you the way that you are?
First impressions matter, which is why I place importance on seemingly minor details like the desktop icon or main menu. In Eriksholm, gamers are greeted with a plain presentation, a gloomy gray backdrop bearing the logo in gold. The screen blooms, issuing an antique, fairy tale aesthetic that's representative of the game's period and the protagonist's utopian aspirations. This sense of simplicity effectively establishes player expectations. Expectations Eriksholm successfully satisfies. What else is satisfying? Cutscenes. They're nearly photorealistic, showcasing stunning subtleties such as facial fuzz. You know, the stuff Elliot Page prays for. Cinematics feature powerful lighting, highly detailed textures, and phenomenal facial animation, aka that thing Anne Hathaway can no longer do. However, certain components, particularly hand movements, wrist work, and fabric physics, fail to follow that foundational fidelity, making them more noticeable by comparison. Eriksholm is played from a bird's eye perspective. That said, in-game assets are of a considerably lower poly count than those featured in cutscenes. Despite this, the visual presentation remains consistently impressive due to its more distant viewpoint. The game also presents extended character conversations from this position. While this approach is serviceable and even personally enjoyable, as it evokes the feel of watching a stage play, after experiencing the quality of the cutscenes, these sequences can feel like a lazy and less ambitious alternative. Also, while Hanna is described as young, her face often appears quite adult. This is a grade of guesswork that Drake does not need. Being an isometric title ultimately works in Eriksholm's favor, as the perspective complements the need to strategize and react to events occurring across a broad field. The experience is largely stealth-focused, featuring a few straightforward puzzles, kinda boring collectibles, and minimal combat, assuming the occasional bear hug counts as combat. Some players may not fancy this playstyle. Frankly, for a while, I fell into the segment of some, but as the game progressed, I came to appreciate the nature of its design. In other words, my concerns came and went as fast as Saros did. As for the aforementioned collectibles, they consist solely of an abundance of orphaned documents. These entries, for the most part, serve as world building, and generally, players who skip them won't miss out on vital information. On occasion, however, they provide practical value, such as elaborating on weapons or warning the player of potential perils. Would be nice if obtaining documents offered incremental character upgrades, like buffing Sebastian's super sluggish swim speed, or at minimum, if the documents featured narration, you know, kind of like a certain 13-year-old game. Interactable objects are highlighted in yellow, a design decision that is quite effective given the game's zoomed out perspective, where identifying points of interaction could otherwise be problematic. However, this approach also diminishes the desire to blindly explore, as areas of interest are plainly presented. Ultimately, Eriksholm offers few opportunities for discovery. It's like that rare occasion when you date a girl and she only has one personality. It's kind of like that. There go my 3 female viewers. Barring the infamous use of video game yellow, Eriksholm is sly in how it steers the player. For instance, when Hanna teaches her companions to use the dart, she is essentially teaching the player. As the game progresses, players gain control of additional characters, each equipped with distinct abilities. These gameplay variations help diversify encounters and provide somewhat of a break from Eriksholm's occasional monotony. It's like the common experience of dating a girl and eventually learning she has multiple personalities. It's kind of like that.
Don't worry. I'll talk to him.
Many encounters appear to have a prescribed solution, leaving little room for experimentation or alternative approaches. This lack of flexibility is somewhat disappointing and reduces the incentive for subsequent playthroughs. As a result, players may find themselves stalled, spending unnecessary time deliberating, or resorting to trial and error. Because the game is grounded in realism, the notion of infinite darts is odd. And if there's one thing I learned from the Resident Evil series, it's that limited inventory helps heighten tension. Conversely, the decision to provide infinite darts reinforces my earlier criticism of prescribed solutions. It's almost like the game is telepathically chanting, dart or die, dart or die, dart or die, dart. Okay, that's enough. Also on the topic of realism, it feels inconsistent when enemies fail to detect the player despite the player being only partially concealed by shadow or positioned directly in their line of sight. It's kind of like when a sane and employed adult is channel surfing and inadvertently lands on the view, and as an act of mercy, their brain temporarily blinds and deafens them. It's kind of like that.
I'm kind of retarded.
At times, it feels as though the authorities are searching harder for Hanna than Herman. I don't recall Captain Landon ever mentioning a separate search party, nor are players shown cutscenes suggesting such efforts. Now, maybe I'm senile and wrong, or maybe the game should have done a better job of emphasizing this. If I'm right, then this aspect of the narrative feels implausible, like Lucky Charms being anyone's favorite cereal implausible. Let's talk performance. In the old tunnels, I encountered a progression-breaking bug. After darting an enemy and subsequently being spotted, the game restarted from a checkpoint. Cool, nothing strange there, except upon reloading the mission, the enemy remained in a darted state, collapsed, was visible to nearby guards, and caused an endless detection loop. The issue persisted until I exited to the main menu and restarted. Now, how about one where the game didn't save at all? This occurred after reaching an objective involving the mayor and acupuncture. We'll call the mayor section Section B and the section before it Section A. Several days after reaching Section B, I returned to the game only to find myself at the start of Section A. Upon replaying Section A, I noticed that after the cutscene marking the transition into Section B, where one would reasonably expect a checkpoint, the game did not create a save. What I soon discovered is that in that specific instance, the game does not register a checkpoint until the player takes a few steps forward. Now, Section A is neither lengthy nor demanding, but being forced to replay it felt regressive and inconsistent with the title's otherwise reliable save system. This could prove problematic for players less magnanimous than myself. Magnanimous now, that's a word.
Why are you the way that you are?
The piano-focused soundtrack carries a somber seriousness that perfectly establishes the game's dire tone. It significantly elevates the game's key moments and is consistently impressive throughout. Its orchestral, cinematic composition complements the experience exceptionally well, with the score continuing to improve as the game progresses. The music is polished, immersive, and remarkably high quality, ultimately standing out as one of the game's strongest aspects. The voice actors deliver compelling, film-worthy performances that elevate the narrative. Overall, I found the atmosphere very appealing. Eriksholm: The Stolen Dream is a visually impressive, narrative-driven adventure elevated by strong voice acting, cinematic presentation, and an engaging story. While the stealth gameplay is enjoyable, repetitive encounters with limited solutions, occasional AI issues, and some technical troubles hold it back from perfection. Although its replay value is hampered by its monotonous gameplay loop and story-centric structure, it remains a worthwhile experience thanks to its atmosphere, presentation, and compelling narrative. Perhaps you're curious about a stealth game with a side of stuttering, or more accurately, a stuttering game with a side of stealth. If so, check out my review of Resident Evil Requiem. Or maybe you prefer a game lacking a fear-induced speech impediment, as well as lacking fun. If that's you, then check out my review of Star Wars Outlaws.